Okay, this is my first really good look at the whole room. Wow. All right, and what I would suggest about this is that it's not as much about me as it is about the energy that you bring together. That's what we're celebrating. So what a blessing it is to be able to join with you in sharing that this morning. It's really, I've been looking forward to this for weeks. When Robert first called me and invited me to come down, I was thinking, what am I going to talk about? Because I've been watching from afar, and there's been a lot of interesting developments at the Unity Church of Dallas over the last, several years. I've been gone almost 5 years now. It's hard to believe. So I've been watching from afar, and I thought I was in the middle of working on a series at my church in Evanston, and I wanted to really celebrate the work and the writings of James Dillet Freeman. How many know James Dillet Freeman? Yeah? Unity's poet laureate. He's also been called the poet laureate of the moon because the prayer of protection and his poem, I Am There, are both on the moon. They were taken to the moon by astronauts. I was looking through all sorts of materials, and there's a compendium of his work, and I found this wonderful essay titled Life is Change. And I thought, perfect. As long as I'm working on a series of James Dillet Freeman stuff, we'll talk about this essay of his, Life is Change. So a little bit more about what I learned about James and why I think he's a beautiful spokesman for all that we aspire to, all that we seek to embody in Unity teachings. He had a fairly rough beginning, apparently. I haven't been able to find much detail about it, but suffice to say that I think he was a bit of a rebel and probably in a bit of trouble sort of in his growing up years until he met Myrtle Fillmore. At the age of 19, Myrtle Fillmore hired him to work in the emerging Silent Unity programs and ministries. He later became a letter writer for Silent Unity, so he's got that deep prayer background. And then over the course of a 50-year career with Unity, he managed to bring this wonderful blend of what it is to be human, the human experience, together with a transcendentalist kind of perspective. And all of that got shaped and sort of thrown together in poems, in essays, in stories, but I'm going to focus on just one today, so it won't be a whole James Dillet Freeman presentation here. So let's start with Life is Change. If there's one great truth about life, it is that life is change. As we live, we all move from level to level in consciousness. We go up a path, and as we go, things change, and we change. It is as when we move from a city, we can never go back. We may think we can go back. We may wish to go back. We may look back with longing and think to ourselves, that was the good life then. We may even go back to when we thought the city that we left. Sorry, one more time. We may even go back to what we thought was the city we left, but it will never be there, not the city that we remember. Once you come up a step, you can never go back. When you start to go back, you quickly find that you can't warm yourself by last night's fire. However brightly it may blaze in memory, now it's only a heap of ashes, and if you would be warm, you must build another fire. Once you have run with the foxes, how can you go back to being a hare again? Better to be least of the foxes and king of the hares. All the happy toys of childhood, the dolls and the lead soldiers, where are they now? Life never stands still. Life is to be lived. It is to be lived at the level we've come up to. We can't hold on to anything for long. If we do, we'll wish we'd let it go. We can't even hold on to a breath. We have to let it go in order to breathe again. So that seemed like such a perfect theme out of which to begin today's talk. Oh, there's the YOU thing. By the way, that YOU program, awesome, man. That is some good energy to be cultivating. Good work happening there. So I thought that would be a wonderful context in which to move. And then when I arrived here in Dallas, I got here last Thursday and have been able to do a little bit of exploring around town. And I can't believe the changes that this community, and I'm not talking about just Unity Church of Dallas, I'm talking about the whole, I haven't seen the whole Metroplex, but certainly in downtown Dallas and some of the areas that I've been able to explore. Within my old neighborhood where I lived, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say there are thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of new condo and apartment residences there. It's just exploded. It's seismic, and I believe that to be literal because you have earthquakes now. That wasn't happening when I was here 5 years ago. The Trinity River was a little gully down the middle of that broad expanse, and I think 2 times while I was here, maybe the waters breached the little gully. And when I'm looking at the area photographs as what's happening now with the Trinity River, it's just, there are so many changes happening at every level of being that it makes sense to me that those are going to be reflected in what happens in spiritual community too. So I think that's sort of a signal of an indication or a reflection of how Unity Church of Dallas is moving through the changes that it's experiencing. I was aware that part of the campus had been sold to developers. I knew that had kind of happened at the East End. But I came here yesterday. Usually when I get ready for a talk, I live right near the lakeshore in Evanston. And so on Sunday mornings, I'm up pacing, doing my pacing, that's what I did here too, along the lakeshore. And I realized I wasn't going to be able to do that here. So yesterday I came by the church and I thought I was going to do my pacing on the Labyrinth over in the other parking lot. In my imagination, I thought, it's been a few years. It might be a little bit faded. I might have trouble seeing the lines. But boy, the lines aren't there anymore. And I understand that's just happened this week. The grading has just started. So when you noticed that coming in this morning, I mean, what was the feeling that got evoked? Because feeling tones are a part of how our consciousness gets developed. And if your experience was like mine, it was a little bit of, I understood that it's an evolution and we're moving forward, and so I'm happy that the church is now on a firmer fiscal foundation, and also there was a little bit of sadness at what's having let go. And so I was clambering over the ruins over there, the rubble over there. Ruins isn't right there. Scratch that. The emerging, whatever it is, I was scrambling over that, and I found myself looking for just a little piece of asphalt that had some of the blue paint from the maze, right? From the labyrinth. And so something in me just wanted to have some commemoration of that. And so I dragged it home. I'm staying with Nan Hart, has opened up her home to me. I dragged that thing home, and I walked in, and she says, "So what, are you going to want me to send that piece of asphalt back to Chicago with you? What am I going to do with that?" And I had this sense, this awareness, that it was really a part of me wanting to hold on to something that has passed, that time has passed. And there's nothing wrong with that process. We do that through any change. There is always some letting go. And often there's a grief process that happens within that. But to be mindful of where it is we're letting go is hugely important to being able to carry forward a positive energy that will actually create an expansive place so that our heart's open and our experience deepens and we're living from a higher vibrational level. So being mindful of what that process looks like for us both individually and in community is just hugely important. Because sometimes I find in my own experience when I've been going through a lot of change that it feels like a battle. It's like I have to fight against it to keep my consciousness high and to keep my thoughts positive. There's a real struggle that happens with that. And so I thought what I'd like to do, because all of that change helped me realize that to talk to you guys about the fact that life has changed is sort of redundant. You've been living it. Y'all are fully aware of that piece. So what I'm hoping is that perhaps Jim's writing here provided a little bit of a context or a perspective or a reminder that, it's part of evolution. But what I want to spend the rest of our time together today talking about is how is it that now we know the change happens, how is it that we keep our vibrational level high? How do we keep our thoughts high? What might be some practices that would help us to be able to stay in that energy? And I found a biblical story that I think speaks to this really nicely. And I was really proud that I was able to, in front of the YOUers, use my device. This is for my Bible reference. The Amalekites defeated. This is from Exodus. And by the way, the book of Exodus, the Israelites have left left Egypt, right? And they're headed for the Promised Land. And they're 40 days of change. They're really tired of it. And at this point in the story, they have just been over through the grumbling about not having any water, and so God, through Moses, has provided water, and so they've kind of reached a resting point. And at that point, when they think sort of the worst is over, this is what happens. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of my God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites, as Moses had ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. Aaron and Hur were advisors, Moses' advisors. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. So what does that have to do with how we deal with change? Think of the Amalekite army as change, as the challenge that we're up against, right? And think of Moses' raised hands as the higher perspective thoughts that we're wanting to hold on to, right? When we're in challenge, when we're facing the changes in our lives, I don't know, whatever they are, when we're facing those, it's work. It involves emotional work and psychological work and physical work and spiritual work. It's work. That gets tiring. And at some point, we need to be able to rest into another power other than our own ego power, right? So that's where the rest of the symbolism comes in. How many know what rock stands for, or what Charles Fillmore would tell us rock represents in the metaphysical study of our Bibles? I know y'all are like, yeah, underfooting. The church was founded on the rock of faith. Peter is the rock of faith. So it's really resting in that total awareness, realizing that there is a ground upon which we can stand. And so when we're moving into that space of needing a little bit more support, the first step is to step back into a space of knowing beyond knowing. Look at past experiences. I've been through something like this before, perhaps, and I know I've found my way through that. So reminding ourselves of what is really true, what is truth in this situation, that's a huge piece of being able to maintain that support we need to move through. And then the other two, Aaron and Hur, what do those represent? Well, Charles would tell us that in consciousness, because remember, in consciousness, it's all happening within us. We have all of the capacity we need for that support. So perhaps it's the qualities that we see represented in the windows in the Peace Chapel, our 12 powers. It's love, it's wisdom, it's judgment, it's whatever it is that we need to draw on those resources from within us to be able to stand tall and firm in that openness and that receptivity and that high level of consciousness. Yes? I would say, so that's the metaphysical piece, right? That's all within us. I would say there's also great value in looking at this story from the metaphorical perspective as well. If we look at Aaron and Hur, not only as qualities that we have within ourselves, but those are qualities and strengths that we might also be able to experience through the support of others, right? That's what's drawn you here today. That it's in spiritual community sometimes that we can reconnect with those positive energies, that we can hold those up and make them the very truth out of which we're going to express and the choices that we're going to make. So that support, that help, is not just about what's within us. It's also about really being open to seeing clearly where it is we are supported in our spiritual journey. And to be able to, if necessary, ask for help, be willing to ask for help, be willing to be vulnerable and authentic and get that support that we're needing. Whether it's, I don't know, I still call mom sometimes when I'm needing help. Let's see, so what does that look like? I want to share with you, I've encountered the work of a young man that I consider to be quite remarkable. His name is Nemo Patel. At the first service, I had people remind me, what's the fish movie that's animated? Finding Nemo, that's how I remember his name. So Nemo Patel, he is a Harvard graduate, and then he went to Wall Street and earned a bunch of money, and then he decided for his next objective or goal in life, he wanted to be rich and famous. So he opted to try out Hollywood and become a rap star. And apparently he had some success with that. I haven't Googled what his rap songs were, what those hits might be. But on his video, you can see that he had some pretty interesting experiences with that. And then in the midst of working toward that objective, he realized that this really isn't doing it for me. There's something still missing in my life. And so he took 2 years off and went to India, and he stayed at the Gandhi ashram. And what he got in touch with there was that music was still a passion of his that he wanted to express. But he was also very interested in being able to take the values that had become clear to him, that were important, and to be able to share those with others. And so he created an organization called Empty Hands Music. That's the name of it, emptyhandsmusic.com, if you want to sort of put that in the back of your mind. Because what he's done is made some amazing music available completely free, downloaded for free. Once a year, he comes back to the States and he does a tour. I'm really excited because he's coming to Unity on the North Shore in August, and we're going to make it a kind of interfaith event. But what he does is shares these values through song and through story that remind us about who we truly are. They remind us about what's important, and they move us outside of that space of being so caught up in the outcomes that we're wanting to see from the changes we experience, that we can move into a different level of being and consciousness. So what I'd like to do is share with you, and this is in preparation for meditation, share with you a short video clip of one of those songs. And what I'd like you to do is just sort of take into your bones, take into your very being, this philosophy, these values, as a way of moving through any changes that you might be experiencing in your life. Because it really is about knowing a sense of oneness. Oh, before we go there, I forgot, it's a great Charles Fillmore quote that kind of speaks to this too. Charles writes in, this is Christian Healing, "To one in spiritual understanding, there is no loss. The going and coming of material and intellectual things are but changes in the panorama of life. Changes are constantly taking place and will continue so long as we live in a consciousness of duality, the yes and no state of existence, which is mortality." So it's in recognizing our oneness and recognizing that even in the midst of the ambivalent feelings that we might have experienced walking in and seeing the parking lot being graded for something new, even walking in and the joy that we're seeing in faces that we maybe haven't seen in a while, and also maybe a longing or a sadness that it's not still a part of our experience, that all of that is a part of a wholeness. And as we can sort of move out of the space where we're making judgments about what that means, and open to how we might express fully here and now where we are, then we step into a greater degree of that oneness, right? So that's what I'm wanting us to sort of just allow as we watch this short little clip from Nemo Patel.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds.
We are so busy behind getting power and behind getting money that we are forgetting why we are here. At last, we all have to go from this world empty-handed. But that joy of spreading kindness and spreading gratitude is something that you will keep in your heart and mind till the time you will die.
Whatever dies, it dies. Whatever works, when it works, it works. Whatever flies, let it fly. Whatever fails, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds and nothing more.
Don't you just want to go dance with them? Oh. So what I'd like to do to move into meditation is make a prayerful affirmative statement that just restates those lyrics for us as we move into a space of allowing the changes of life to unfold in us and through us. Whatever grows will grow together. Whatever grows will grow. Whatever dies will die. Whatever works will work. Whatever flies will fly. Whatever fails will fail. What's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds, nothing more. All right, so let's use that as a launching point for meditation. Just rest in, breathe comfortably. What I'd like you to do to begin is just maybe take a quick inventory, physical and emotional inventory. See what energies are most alive in you right here and right now. And what we remember in meditation is that all of those energies are an expression of our wholeness. That we ignite a deeper capacity to be the Christ in expression as we become willing to be fully present to the richness of life. Continue breathing in deeply. And as your mind begins to quiet, perhaps you can cultivate a greater capacity for allowing. Allow the greatness that is the very essence of your spirit to rise up within you. And notice what energy that rising is charged with. Whatever the energy, we know that it is an avenue toward healing, toward claiming our oneness, toward unity of body, mind, and spirit. And so as we prepare now to rest in just a moment of silence, I invite you to continue in this energy of openness and receptivity and allowing, and let whatever flows in you and through you flow freely in the silence. And now, before we bring this meditation to a close, I would invite you to once again just do a overall consciousness check. Identify the vibration, the energy of what you're feeling, and allow it to expand. See it expanding out beyond your physical presence to enfold those who are seated next to you. Begin to allow that vibrational energy now to expand and encompass everyone who's in this room. And we know that by the love, by the compassion, by the kindness, by the energies of gratitude that are a part of us, we truly do transform all that is. Breathe in deeply. Know that truth about the incredible power that's within you to embrace change, to move through it in healthy ways, and to transform it into an expansive force for greater good in your life and in the world. So it is. Amen.
I'd come to